Thank you. I read something just before coming up about Commissioner Daines making a comparison to refusing the current swine flu vaccines based on the 1976 swine flu vaccine fiasco as akin to refusing to fly because of the occasional, whatever it is, 1 in a million planes that crashes. Well, first of all, we all have a choice. We all know that planes crash, and we all have a choice about whether or not to fly anyway. So I think the analogy breaks down right off the bat. But I think Commissioner Daines and I use different airlines because the vaccine flu airline has been crashing over and over again. There's a long history of peer-reviewed studies showing flu vaccines have little or no effectiveness. So the idea of mandating them doesn't seem to be well supported. But I'll leave the details on that to the science folks. I'm here today to speak to you as a lawyer. But I wanted to make a couple of comments about what's going on outside of New York, because you folks are not alone here, and I want you to know that. A few weeks ago, somewhere in the middle of August, I saw results of a poll saying that 1/3 of UK nurses would refuse the swine flu vaccines. Another third didn't know at that time. The end of August, there was a poll released saying half of the healthcare workers in Hong Kong would refuse the swine flu vaccines, all of these concerns over the safety and effectiveness. Just last week, another poll came out from France. 65% of nurses there are saying no. And this weekend, speaking with one of the nurse organizers, it was my understanding that in her circle of friends and peers, that something on the order of 70% are saying no. The number's going up. You are not alone, New York. The country and the world is experiencing the same problem. So while we're focusing today on New York necessarily because of your unique situation, the rest of the country and the rest of the world is watching what's going on here today, and you have our support. And on behalf of the rest of the country that has been contacting me, I want you to know that we are with you today. Now I'd like to run through just a few quick points that I think help summarize, although the concerns are far more extensive than what I'm going to do in the next 5 minutes. But I want to underscore a few points. Some of you may be aware that earlier this year, back in February, I believe, Baxter, a major vaccine manufacturer, sent contaminated vaccines to 18 different countries, contaminated with bird flu, live avian bird flu virus. My understanding is that Baxter initially denied this and then later claimed it was an accident, and the WHO is maybe doing an investigation. That's, I don't know if we'll hear any more officially about this incident or not. People have speculated that this was a population control agenda to start an international pandemic. Some other people have said it's an accident. Others have said maybe there's a rogue employee. The medical people I have spoken with say that the bio-level 3 safety protocols employed make it virtually impossible for that to have been an accident. But I will tell you that I don't need to speculate on the actual cause. The mere fact that that incident occurred, regardless of the cause, is sufficient basis for me to say I should have the right to decide whether or not I trust this industry. And while I think it would be hypocritical to go to the other extreme, as many people, I would say justifiably do, and say vaccines should be prohibited altogether because there are many other ways to deal with this issue that don't have the problems we have with vaccines, I think to go as far as to say we should have the choice is very reasonable. Now, a few weeks ago, Health and Human Services Secretary Sebelius invoked a provision of the 2006 Public Readiness and Emergency Preparedness Act in which she granted immunity to the vaccine manufacturers for any liability for harm that come from their products. Now, I think there's maybe this much of a rationale for that, in that, well, gee, if we don't give them freedom from liability, they won't come save us with their products. But I tell you, if the manufacturers have to be free from liability to be involved, if they have that little confidence in their ability to produce a safe and effective product, should we not also have the right to say, we don't trust it either? A colleague of mine sent me a North Carolina case recently, legal precedent for North Carolina. I'm embarrassed to say that, being a North Carolina attorney, I wasn't already aware of the case, but it was fascinating. In there, it's an old case, but it's still good law in North Carolina, and in there, the court makes a comparison to the state endorsing a single modality of healthcare. In this case, we're talking allopathic versus any of the many other homeopathic, chiropractic, acupuncture, naturopathic, what have you. The list goes on and on. But there are many modalities and many choices, at least on other issues. And they said in that case that it was like or analogous to the government picking a single religion and telling us that that's what we have to do. Well, that issue seems to be more or less resolved in our government. The healthcare one, clearly not. But to me, government forcing vaccines amounts to, among many other concerns and problems, an endorsement of but one of numerous modalities, many other ways that are available. And I just want to give you one example, not to tout it above the others, but simply it's such a striking example. Last fall, Cuba carried out a successful use of homeoprophylaxis on a population of 2.5 million Cubans in their annual leptospirosis epidemic. Now, homeoprophylaxis is just a long word for the use of homeopathic remedies in the same function as allopathic vaccinations. Leptospirosis is a fever disease apparently common in Cuba. They deal with it annually on an ongoing basis. For some reason last year, and I don't have the information on this, they used homeoprophylaxis instead of allopathic vaccinations. They spent about 1/10 of the cost, and they gave 5 million remedies doses, 2 per person, to 2.5 million people. And the results were substantially better than any prior experience they'd had using standard orthodox vaccinations. So it's not just a question of, do we choose between the vaccine or the disease? The question, at least theoretically and idealistically, what should be our practical question and free right to decide is, what method do each of us feel is best for us to use based on our own independent research or our own conversations with the healthcare practitioners we know and trust, because there are many options out there and many of them are effective, and I'm sure you'll hear more about a lot of that today.